Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for High Velocity Radio.
Welcome to the High Velocity Radio Show, where we celebrate top performers producing better results in less time. Stone Payton here with you this afternoon. You guys are in for a real treat. Please join me in welcoming to the broadcast with BrandButler.ai, Mr. Adrian Boysel. How are you, man?
Oh, yeah, I'm so good, brother. Thanks for having me.
Well, it is a delight to have you on the broadcast. I got a ton of questions, man. I know we're not going to get to them all, but I wonder if we could start. If you could paint a picture for me and our listeners, mission, purpose, what are you and your team really out there trying to do for folks, man?
Everything is leading back to helping at-risk youth and in turn restoring broken families. If we can help give them a better foundation, show them that business and entrepreneurship is a pathway, the greatest pathway to self-improvement, and they can build a business that sets them free from a 9-to-5, from a typical job, and they're able to do what they're passionate about and love, right? That's going to set them up for a lot more success and a lot more impact, which is really what I'm after. And so helping them build better families, and that's going to in turn build better communities and build better states, build better countries. And that's ultimately the goal, is just to make a little bit of a difference in the world with each person.
What a wonderful North Star. It sounds like noble and rewarding work. And one of the expressions of that vision and that mission is this BrandButler.ai. Tell us a little bit about this thing.
Yeah, so I started my journey as a self-taught business owner, opened up my first brick and mortar at 19 years old, wrote my business plan after making some bad decisions and following my dad's advice that wound me up doing the 30 days in a jail cell. And so I wrote my business plan and I said, I'm never going to do this again. I'm going to change my life. I'm not going to live and take advice from my dad anymore. And I'm going to live my own life and do something different. I had a mentor that really encouraged me. And I had some good mentors, but I didn't really have the mindset to be able to go out and hire coaches and consultants and experts out in the field. And through my journey, I've taken the long, treacherous, hard path and done everything the hard way. And I want to be able to save younger people from having to do everything the hard way. And one of the keys to success as an entrepreneur is having your plans in place before you start. Now, you don't have to over plan, but having a simple, basic plan in place so you have a clear vision and direction for where you're going is so critical. So I've created 2 tools as of the moment, but we're going to have a whole suite of tools that we're working on. The first tool was the brand strategy tool. This is getting you clear on what your story is, what your niche is, and what your identity is. What archetype are you? Carl Jung came up with the archetypes of the hero, the revolutionary, the sage, the magician, right? There's 12 different archetypes. And so I help walk people through that and develop their brand strategy. Your message, as many speakers and people have said before me. That is one of the things that you go out there, and what I've learned about people is that their voids have become their values. And so if I can get deep into their heart and find out what those voids are and where their values are, I can wrap everything that they do in their business and their brand strategy around that. And that's what differentiates them from everybody else, because nobody else has the same story. And so once that foundation is laid, then I can go into the marketing plan, and it goes from prospect to lead to customer. And I walk them through the same phase. So Brand Butler is an AI tool where I basically created a digital twin of myself. And I asked the same questions. I took all of the consultations I've ever done, downloaded the recordings of them, used the transcripts, and trained an AI bot to be me. And it walks you through these questions, and the deeper you're willing to go, the better your blueprints are going to come out. So it creates a brand strategy and a marketing plan that gives you the pathway and the deliverables of what you need to actually go out and build a business.
So am I right that the foundation or the impetus for this body of work that you're evolving into was putting together an agency, Adrian Agency? Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's correct. It all started with that. I had the first business, which was my walk-in graphic design and printing studio. I ended up adding signs to that where I'd walk in, people would sit down right in front of me and design their business cards, their flyers, their logos, their websites right there while they sat there. Literally, they would walk out with a finished product. Even their business cards would be printed right there on the spot, or their signs right there on the spot, and they'd walk out with it. So I sold that business in 2011. I had all this experience in branding and SEO and web design, but I didn't know anything about advertising. So I went to Chicago, learned how to do Google Ads, And then I started doing freelance consulting because I didn't have a business. So I was just doing consulting. And after finding a lot of success, generating well over $50 million for my clients doing the consulting, I said, okay, it's time for me to open up a brick and mortar agency. And then in 2021, I went through kind of a big aha moment in my life where I realized that the type of clients that I wanted to go after was not a demographic, which everybody in the industry was telling me, just go after carpet cleaners or just go after attorneys or just go after a certain niche down, right? Everybody says that. I realized that that wasn't the right path for me. And it all came very clear because I was doing a lot of work with youth already in ministry at that time. It became very clear that the people I wanted to work with most, it was a psychographic, not a demographic. I wanted to work with social impact driven brands and companies and organizations. Anybody that has a cause behind their brand where they're trying to make the world a better place in some way, whether it's at-risk youth, domestic violence, animals, whatever your cause is, whatever breaks your heart in the world, as I like to say, that's what I want to help you go out there and increase your impact on.
So did you get an early win or two? Maybe you could share some highlights of that, because I got to believe that it encouraged you to keep going and down that path.
Well, I think, yeah, when you make a big leap like that, I actually fired about half of my clients at that time, 2021, and went all in on the social impact stuff because half of my clients just really weren't in alignment with that. And as soon as I did that, we lost, half of our revenue. But within 6 months, my revenue ballooned, and I can say that was my first 7-figure year I had ever done in business. I'd never done less than 6 figures ever since I started, but that was my first 7-figure year. So the results really spoke for themselves. And I started helping companies like WeTip.com, which was the largest anonymous tip reporting company in the country, rebuilt their whole website, helped them with some of their branding, created explainer videos for them. And they were acquired as part of that whole deal. And so I was able to help them get a bigger impact, a bigger reach. And then LGen.com, which is a huge employer out of Connecticut that works only with veterans. They hire veterans to come into their company. They train and they basically reintegrate veterans out of the military into the workforce. And so helping companies like that are trying to make a big difference, I've just watched the impact that it's made. And I've watched companies go from $3 million to $8 million in just 10 months, utilizing some of these strategies that I have in a very short period of time.
So now that you've got this kind of momentum, you've got some successes under your belt, what are you finding the most rewarding, man? What's the most fun about it at this point for you?
The dream for me since about 2 years ago has been to be a full-time content creator, educator, trainer, and just be able to educate as many people as I possibly can. I really love teaching. I would say I'm not, my skills, my axe isn't the sharpest there yet. I'm a work in progress, but it's something I'm really passionate about learning and try to become the best teacher I possibly can. But content creation and speaking is something I've spent a lot of time sharpening that axe. So I've gotten really good at speaking. I've got really good at the content creation, understanding content strategy. I launched another brand beneath BrandButler called Video Marketing Vault, where we start a lot of our stuff for our clients starts with video. So if we create a video for a client, we can turn that into blogs, we can turn that into books, we can turn that into lead magnets, we can turn that into courses. There's so many things that we can do with video content, even podcasts like this and radio shows. There's so much that video can be leveraged for. And so I created the Video Marketing Vault brand, and I'm helping about half a dozen people right now with that. So that's really been my forte, and what makes me really excited is to help people create content.
Okay, so it's my show, so let's talk about me for a minute.
Yeah.
I'm the number 2 guy in a pretty successful media company. My business partner and I, we own the Business RadioX network. We have several physical studios around the country. We have developing markets that are available for partnering with us. It's growing slower than we'd like it to. It's grown organically, which has had some of its own rewards. But as we begin to learn more about your world, your work, what are some ways we might tap into it? And if we were beginning to work with you, and I know I'm giving you very little overview information here, but what are some of the first steps or the first kind of conversations or activities we might engage in?
Yeah, I've been given a lot less in the past and had to do. So one of the things that I would say is if you look at the former greatest marketers of all time, what we call the rich dead marketers. That's ClickFunnels, Russell Brunson, Steve Larson. Some of my mentors I've known and been working with now for a decade have taught me some of this stuff. And you look at, they call the rich dead marketers like P.T. Barnum, right? One of the best and first millionaires in the United States. his whole concept that he created was dramatic demonstrations. Everything that he did, from promoting the singer that he brought over from Europe to the biggest elephant to walking across the bridge and the Brooklyn Bridge and all these things, dramatic demonstrations and actually doing things that bring shock and awe to people, right? Adley Kinsman is a content creator who gets over 1 billion views a month doing dramatic demonstrations. And her approach to doing dramatic demonstrations was just to take two things that don't belong together. So she did a cooking video, and in the cooking video, within 10 seconds, she opens up her fridge and there's a box of tampons in the fridge. And people lost their minds over it. They're in the comments and she doesn't mention it. She doesn't talk about it, but it's that subtle little thing that's like, that doesn't belong there, right? Her first video she ever did, I think she got 10 million views. She put chickens in her bathtub, right? Nobody thinks to put chickens in a bathtub, but you take two things that don't normally go together and you combine them, and all of a sudden you create this polarizing, shock and awe factor with people. So figuring out what that is for you guys and figuring out how to drive more eyeballs back to your offers, right? That's a really important thing. On your offers, right? You got to have a good hook. You got to have a good story, as I talked about. And your offers got to be irresistible. And this is where a lot of people miss that part. A quick story. I had a brochure that I designed years and years ago, and I took it to one of my mentors who had been doing marketing for almost 40 years at that point. And he showed him my brochure. I was all proud. It was probably one of the best designs I'd created. And he's like, wow, this is beautiful, Adrian. I was like, thanks. I was so excited to get validated by this guy who was, late 60s at this point. And he's like, but what's the point? I'm like, what do you mean, what's the point? I'm like, buy a mattress. Of course. And he's like, where does it say in here to buy a mattress? And then the light bulb went off and I was like, oh my gosh, it doesn't say anything about the mattress. Like, listen, Adrian, you're really great at design. You actually have a really strong skill set for marketing. I could tell you've done a lot of it. He's like, but you don't have the fundamental foundation of what marketing really is and the science of marketing. It all comes down to logic, ethics, and emotions. And if you can understand and implement those things and understand what motivates society, which is vanity and greed and love, you will win. And once I had those little gold nuggets, even just at a surface level, that changed everything with my marketing strategy. So I created these marketing plans and the brand strategies based around all of those things, including books like Story Brand, books like The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. I took all these pieces of information and could have created a conglomerate of the purpose-driven branding strategy, purpose-driven marketing. And that's what I would encourage you guys to do is, what is your purpose? What is your vision? What is the cause behind your brand? And the more you're able to speak that and shout that and tell that story from the rooftops, the bigger the impact you're going to make.
And this BrandButler.ai and some of these other tools that you mentioned would help us get started on that journey, but also it sounds like maybe equip us so that we're not always dependent on you and your team going forward. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah, it gives you clarity. It clarifies your vision, brings you something that you is now in writing, right? It gives you everything from your mission statement, your core values, your initial story, your ideal client. Who do you want to repel? A lot of people aren't thinking about the types of people they want to repel that will actually go out and talk about your business because you're repelling them intentionally, right? And it gives you your archetype. There's so much that goes into it. So this is going to handle a lot of that stuff. We're working on an avatar builder for like creating different avatars of different types of people you want to target. We're working on the business planning tools. So there's a lot coming down the pipeline with Brand Butler. I wanted to be able to give these tools to any business owner at any budget to be able to utilize and at least give them some clarity and direction. Because in this world with so many different tactics, the fundamental strategies don't change.
I know in our line of work, media, podcasting, and there's in our particular line of work, a lot of it is focused directly on business development. There are more than a few myths, misconceptions, a string of common mistakes that people make when they try to get into this arena. I got to believe the same is true in your world. Do you see or do you come across some of the same patterns when you first start working with clients that you're going to need to address?
Oh yeah. I mean, expectations are probably the biggest. As if they've worked with one agency or 10 or 100 agencies, it's always the same common thing over and over again. They overpromised, underdelivered, overpromised, underdelivered. The agency's telling the client what they want to hear so they can close the sale. And the client is telling the agency what they want to hear so they will take on their business, right? And do it for as cheap as possible. And that's just an absolute recipe for disaster. So my job as an educator, as a trainer, as a consultant is to come in and set the expectations from the very beginning to be as realistic as I possibly can. And then something magical happens. Something magical happens, and it allows me to set the expectations to the point where all of a sudden, as we get into the campaign and things start happening earlier than I even said that they would, they're like, oh, wow, it builds trust. And they're like, wow, this actually happened exactly like he said. And so as I continue to set the expectations, like, hey, you need to be thinking about this campaign on a 1 year, 18 months, 2 year level. If you're expecting to get an ROI in 90 days, we're not a good fit, right? If you think you're going to put $1,000 a month into your roofing business and you're going to get any type of traction or ROI on your $1,000, like what would be a good ROI? 1 for 1, 1 for 2. If you think you're going to get results on that $1,000, you're kidding yourself. Your competition is spending $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, and you're all competing for 3% of the business. One of the common issues and failure points that I see in most businesses, even today, even in 2024, is the fact that very few of them have a CRM. And if they do have a CRM, they're not set up properly and they're not actually implementing it and using it the way that they should. And that is just devastating to see. And then don't even get me started about the planning phase. I could probably go up to 1,000 companies today and say, how many of you guys in a room full of people and say, raise your hand if you have a written marketing plan. And 999 of those people will not raise their hand. And it's sad because we live in an age where this is more important than ever for any business, is to have that marketing plan. So I'm trying to position myself as the person that's going to set those expectations properly and help them develop a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail, right? Like that famous quote. And so this is a big cause and a big mission for me, is to help each business owner get a plan under their belt so they are at least operating with some sort of strategy behind them that is proven. I'm using proven processes, proven methodologies from books and from campaigns that I've made millions and millions of dollars from.
When it comes to sales and marketing, and I will often ask guests to talk to me about their sales and marketing process, but it occurs to me that you, more so than most, you've absolutely got to be eating your own cooking, as my dad would say.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I do that. For the longest time, I didn't. I have no problem admitting that. From 2015 until 2019, I was not eating my own cooking. Yeah, I was doing my own SEO and I was doing my own lead generation tactics, but I was not running ads. I was not doing videos. I was doing my podcast and radio show and stuff, but I was not fully immersed and all in on my own approach. And even the CRM side of things, I was not living those things out. And it wasn't until I started doing that where I was able to cross that threshold of that high 6 figures and go into the 7-figure mark. That was a really huge shift for me. And now YouTube has absolutely changed my life. There's no better platform on the entire planet to grow a business than YouTube, period.
So what's next for you, man? Is there a book in you? Are you going to continue to do more speaking and maybe more media, like radio shows, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so there's 2 big things that are happening right now. I have 4 books in progress. One I already finished. Second one, I'm 20 pages away from. Just went over it yesterday with my book coach. The third one, I'm like 70% done with. And then my Business Minute book will be the first one to come out. That one will be finished in 5 days. So I have 4 books that I'm working on. And so that's a big thing, like content creation, right? That just all goes back to the content creation stuff. But the other thing that I'm working on, the second piece, is my Love Gangster brand. So Love Gangster right now, as of this moment, is just a YouTube podcast and show. I have it on, Spotify and YouTube, things like that. But my goal is to develop that into something much bigger. I want to create a movement and a community around love gangsters and people who are actually making a difference in the world and killing it with kindness, right? I want you to kill them with kindness. And so I'm working on a documentary. I'm working on a clothing brand. I'm working on quite a few things with Love Gangster. Not everything I can talk about quite yet, but this is a big passion project of mine. And it's kind of become my moniker over the last 60 days. Thanks to Adley Kinsman and meeting her at Secret Knock and getting to go to lunch with her, is taking 2 things that don't normally belong together and combining them. And that's what I did with Love Gangsters. I've always been a fan of the mafia movies, the Godfathers, the Scarface, all of that. But I also am very loving, and I just have this God-given gift that when I meet somebody, I just immediately able to build that authenticity and that deep relationship because I'm just so unapologetically me. And so the Love Gangster thing just fits me. It's who I am to the core. And if it wasn't for the Joker song by Steve Miller, the spark and idea would have never come to my mind.
Are you finding that writing the books, beyond the value that you are providing to the different constituencies that you're wanting to serve, are you also finding that it's helping you crystallize your own thinking, solidify your own processes that to the point where it's actually making you a better practitioner because you went through that process?
Oh, yeah. I've run a lot of the content. So I wrote 27,000 words before I even knew that AI existed on my book, on just one of the books. And then I ran some of my processes and frameworks through AI, and it helped me refine those processes and those systems and make them easier to digest and understand. And that has been an absolute game changer. But my frameworks have really come to fruition in a whole new way, thanks to getting it all down on paper. And that's, again, it's like a book is like the ultimate plan, right? You're just writing down everything that you've learned over the course. I mean, I'm coming up on my 18th year now, and I've taken everything that I've learned and I've put it down into this book called Design Your Future. And it's really refined my processes. I've got my leads framework. I've got my purpose-driven branding blueprint framework, my marketing plan framework. All my strategies have really become concrete through writing process.
Well, I don't know when or how you would find the time, but I'm going to ask anyway about passions, pursuits, interests, hobbies outside the scope of your work. Anything in particular outside the scope of the work that you tend to nerd out about or like to enjoy when you try to give yourself some space?
Yeah, so I'm a lifelong artist. I love to paint, draw. I do a lot of that with my 5-year-old daughter, Sunny. She's my whole world. She's probably my biggest passion. I'm a dirt bike guy, skateboard guy, so I got a pretty cool brand new 450 RL Honda dirt bike. I go out and ride with a couple of buddies of mine. I play the piano, took piano lessons during the pandemic, learned how to read music, which was really neat. Been strumming the guitar my whole life, played the drums. So I love music. I love art. I love being outdoors in nature, being in Northern California where I'm at, just north of Sacramento. I've grew up camping and wheeling and fishing and all that fun stuff. So those are like my biggest ones. I do a lot of shows with my wife. So we go to metal shows and concerts and funk music. We're really big into funk music. So music, art, outdoors, those are the big ones for me.
Well, and clearly you're making the time to do that. And I guess I've come to believe that it's important to give yourself that permission to do those kinds of things. In fact, I feel like I come back more recharged and better equipped to serve, don't you?
Absolutely. And you said a secret word there that most people probably missed. I bet 90% of people that just heard that didn't catch it. You make the time, right? We make time for the things that are important to us. You don't find the time. You don't get the time, right? You make the time. And a lot of people are out there trying to get things, right? Instead of asking for things. And that's the thing I love about people that are from other countries is they are not afraid to ask for things, right? My wife is not afraid to ask for things, right? Women are better at it than men. Men won't ask for help. Men won't ask for stuff. And we need to get better as men and as leaders of asking for things, asking for people to use our services, asking for people to come on our show, right? Asking for people to create content with us. We ask them to help us with something, right? And so I think that there's two big things in that is making time for things and asking for things. Those are two secret weapons that if you start being more intentional and mindful about, you'll see a big shift in your life and in your business.
Amen. All right, man, what's the best way for our listeners to tap into your work? Maybe have a conversation with you or someone on your team, whatever you think is appropriate. Let's give them some points of contact.
Yeah, I offer a free consultation, 15-minute, what I call strategy call on my website, adrianboysel.com, ADRIANBOYS as in Sam, EL.com, or check me out on YouTube. Everything I've ever learned at this point, up until about, a year ago probably, is all on my YouTube channel. I've got over 400 videos. I've taught a ridiculous amount of content from SEO and advertising, radio ads, billboards. I mean, you name it. When it comes to marketing, business, entrepreneurship, I've taught it. So check me out on YouTube. Would really appreciate the follow, subscribe there, and I'm super grateful to be able to share this with you guys.
Well, Adrian, it has been an absolute delight having you on the broadcast. Thank you for your insight, your perspective, your energy, your enthusiasm. You're doing important work, man. You're having that social impact that you talk about, and we sure appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. All right, until next time, this is Stone Payton for our guest today, Adrian Boysel with BrandButler.ai, and everyone here at the Business Radio X family saying we'll see you in the fast lane.